Hello, amazing souls. Welcome. My name is Anca, and today I'm sharing with you my point of view and my approach to duality. And this is a request from one of you. Thank you, and sorry it took so long, but I think I understand. I think the timing now is good. It's perfect. I see a shift in the collective, or at least in my little collective, as we approach unity, the detachment from duality or the 3D has increased so much that just presenting information creates a shift in perception. And people can take that and apply it. It is readily available for application in their life. Not 6 months ago, I would say, that same shift would require effort, would require a daily practice, it would require willpower. And now it's like this. So I'm hoping with this video that it will provide that information, that little clarity, that little shift somewhere that you can then apply directly into your life and go with more ease, go in luxury around the life. Okay, so duality, how do I look at it? I see duality as simply the metaphysics of this dimension. It is the engine, the foundation, if you will, the mechanism that allows energy to transmute into form, right? Through the positive and the negative of the electron, right? That electromagnetic charge. So if you go further on that, it's the masculine and the feminine, right? And we're not just talking about the bodies. Obviously, it takes masculine and feminine bodies to procreate and move life forward on this planet. But from an energetic perspective, and we have both masculine and feminine within us, so we are creators within. So this dance, right, is a necessity. The union between these two forces, masculine and feminine, or positive and negative, is a necessity, is just foundational mechanics of how things are being brought to life, right? So for me, duality is very neutral already at the base. Now, the first conflict I feel that we have around duality, when we think of, when we apply it in that realm, because there is no conflict, comes from the distortion that we add to this foundation of just neutral what is, right? But we add this distortion of, ooh, this is good and this is bad, which is judgment, right? We attach a connotation. We add the judgment, number one, and then we add the emotional charge of I like this and I don't like that. Once that judgment and the emotional charge has been added to an idea, it creates movement, okay? Because, I am a very visual person and I love drawing. So this is just a model for simplicity. Duality is simply a line, right? You have the positive extreme and you have the negative extreme. That is it. In the middle, you have the 0 point or neutrality. All right. When things happen, they do not have any type of connotation. Things just happen. It rains. Okay. We look outside and we say, oh, crap, it rains. Now we created a charge, right? So when we create a charge, we move away from the 0 into the negative because it was a negative sensation. So we do that with everything that happens to us. Or, we hear somebody talk, they create within us a judgment towards them. They create a feeling, and we start the dance of back and forth of the line, which, you probably heard about pendulums. Pendulums, that's their job. They just take you from one extreme to the other. The harsher the charge, the more attachment you have to a situation, the further along you go into the extreme. Now, because you charge something, and it can be positive too. The positive is actually more tricky, right? Because the negative, you can catch yourself, oh, okay, crap, I judged this situation. I put my negative aspect on it. Okay, I caught it. But when positive things happen and we inflate the ego, sometimes like, oh, it happened because my achievement, because I put the effort in it, because, whatever. It's harder to catch ourselves, right? But as soon as you move away from this negative, from this neutral, and you move into this one side of the axis, it doesn't matter which one, the natural built-in desire of duality is to bring things back into neutrality. So this magnetism of the pull is pulling you from wherever you went. So you dance. Now, when we're not aware that we are literally just on this line and we are captivated by duality, we simply operate strictly from the magnetism of the poles. And we dance with these influences, right? Or the influences, I like to think of them as pendulums, because they're spheres. The more powerful, the more people buy into it, the more powerful the spheres. They come over us, they influence us. We make decisions based on those influences. We have no idea that decision was not a free decision that came from our true desire, but it was a very strong influence of that pendulum due to the magnetism, because we're playing. We're in that game. So once you start paying attention to the patterns that are happening in your life, you're becoming aware that, oh, I changed people, how many marriages sometimes, the person is different, but it's the same marriage, right? Because the pattern was not solved, but it doesn't matter. Anything, work situation, relationships are easy because they're important to us. So we're at the forefront. But with anything, patterns that are not overcome, you get away from one situation just to come in exactly the same situation within different circumstances. It's because you're constantly just moving along, right, this axis, and you're not actually escaping the polarization. You keep feeding with exactly the same emotion, with exactly the same thinking, with exactly the same reactions. Okay, so to win at this game is to become neutral. When you are neutral, your pendulum doesn't swing all the way to that huge extreme, right? And then when it comes back, it doesn't have the oomph to go to this other extreme. And so it's slowing down. Now your highs and lows are small, right? Now things are becoming manageable. And how do you do that? By constantly observing yourself. How are you reacting in the situation? And at the beginning, you're not going to catch yourself. You're going to react the same way that you react. And after you react, you're like, oh, crap, I failed. I reacted the same way. You didn't fail, actually. You still caught yourself. Keep going. Next time, you're going to catch yourself in the reaction time. Like you're reacting and you're reacting exactly the same way, even though you want to react different. You caught yourself a little bit sooner. You keep going. You apply yourself. After a while, you catch yourself before the reaction. You have time to detach, to become neutral inside, and then respond. Now you have avoided the influence of the pendulum, right? And now you're coming into a choice that is different. You changed the pattern. You freed yourself of the influence of that pattern. Many times, this is a very simplistic model that I'm talking about. There are so many intricacies, right? Because, okay, you freed yourself for the pattern, for example, then the reflection comes back, right? Because you've been perpetuating that pattern for so long. There's going to be all these other pendulums or all these other reflections. So then you have to confirm that, yes, indeed, I have broken the pattern, and now you're establishing a different relationship with your environment, right? So there's all kinds of tricks. This space, it's difficult. It's difficult to get out of the game, but you know that you're starting to master it when you become neutral. And maybe I need to speak about being neutral, because what does it mean? It doesn't mean that you don't care, right? It's like, I'm neutral. No. or you might think, I'm just not going to participate. I'm just not going to react in anything, and I'm just gonna, situation will have to go away. Sometimes that's yes, and sometimes it's a no. So you have to be careful with those things. Being neutral simply means you're no longer feeding emotionally or with judgment a situation. So instead of, a new situation comes in and it looks like it's negative, before you connotate it, oh shit, this is happening again, this is so bad. Before you do that, can you pause and say, let's see how the situation pans out? Because how many times a situation might look like it's a negative thing, just to see 3 weeks later that, oh my God, it actually saved you from something else, or it introduced a new variable that then created an opportunity, right? So it's like, in the moment when things happen, we actually don't know if this is a positive thing or a negative. So if you can catch yourself and remain curious, remain truly neutral, I have no idea. The I don't know is so powerful, right? Because it gives you a tool. Because it's hard to master stillness, right? Especially at the stage where you can say, well, I'm just gonna go blank in my head and I'm gonna create space. It's easier to just say, okay, I'm gonna embrace the I don't know, and I'm gonna watch, I'm gonna observe. So when you master becoming your own observer, and that does take meditation and a daily practice and daily watching, right? You're really becoming observer of the patterns. You're becoming the observer and the kind of like a critic to your own reactions, right? But not in a harmful way, in a very neutral. Yep, I failed. I took that as I failed, but I learned this about myself, or I learned that about my timing, and I'm going to keep that moving on. And that's an experience. It's not actually a failed thing. So keeping up that high motivation, there are days, I'm not going to kid anybody. There are days that they're just difficult to maintain that neutrality. And it's okay. You don't need to master. We're not talking about perfection. When I say mastery, I'm talking about operating in a space that is so close, right, to that neutral line. I'm calling mastery, though, because there comes a point that this neutral view comes off the line altogether. Instead of being here, it's over here somewhere. This is your new neutral. Okay? And what is so amazing when your perspective shifts is that you can see in both directions, right? Because when you're on the line, even though you're neutral and you have mastered, and that is a big win, you can only see or take the stance of one direction, right? You have to look that way to be positive. You have to shift altogether and look that way to be completely negative, right? So when you move off the line, you can see your positive, you can see your negative all in one view. So all of a sudden, from this neutral place, that's why to me you mastered it enough where your perception, right, shifted. And now you are truly your observer. Things are no longer black and white. There are multiple shades of gray. The situation is not good or bad. It depends on the context. It depends on all kinds of things. And it's like, I see the good in this, but I also see the good in that. I also see the bad in this. I also see the good in right? There's like, I see my point of view, but I also see the other person's point of view, right? Like things are kind of getting more complex, more complicated because the perception has shifted so much. Once you mastered that, I call this the plane of acceptance. I'm going to draw. To me, when you solidify that, you literally create a whole plane, right? Because 3 points create a plane. And I call that acceptance because for me in healing, I always have to come up with a healing example. That is the foundation of permanent healing. Without arriving at this plane, permanent healing cannot, you might achieve healing, and after a period you go back into the old patterns or old type of thinking because you achieved this point of view for whatever, 6 months or something, but then your ego took over or whatever, the accomplishments, and you're like, okay, I'm free, I don't have to watch myself, and you haven't solidified this plane, and then you go back into this game, right? When you solidify that acceptance plane, that is solid, and then you're free. So acceptance, again, the same as neutrality. Acceptance is not excusing somebody's behavior. Acceptance is not justifying somebody's behavior. Acceptance is not avoidance, right? I'm just going to accept and forgive, and I'm going to avoid dealing with the situation, or none of those things, right? Acceptance is simply seeing all the, especially with trauma, right? I'm going to use this overcoming trauma, healing trauma. If you're not, it doesn't matter if it's lowercase t or uppercase t, right? When we come into acceptance, forgiveness is the byproduct. You don't have to do anything to forgive. That's why to me, it's like, let's work on acceptance, which is a shift in that perception. You can see and understand the situation from all these point of views, but more so, there's a detachment. You are no longer part of that timeline, if you will. You are the observer of what happened. You are the observer with wisdom, with understanding. On an energetic level, what happens with acceptance, when you are working so hard to just survive on this timeline, or you're even trying to better yourself, you exert a lot of energy, right? Once you move into this point, you're starting to pull a lot of energy back, and you're starting to conserve energy. Once you arrive at acceptance, you have enough energy reserve that shows up as strength to show up and face the trauma. So you're able to stand with that acceptance and with what happened, and not bypass, not excuse, not judge, not avoid. No. You're there with it. And not only that, you are literally having that strength to process the emotions and free them, because usually they're trapped somewhere, in the liver and whatever, wherever they're trapped. And you then can process them. And once that processing is done, that's done. You are healed. You're done with that aspect of it, right? So for me, acceptance is huge, and it's you're already healed. Healing has already happened enough for you to actually apply the healing that has already happened to the actual physical healing, right? Or the mental liberation, the emotional freedom to take place. So it is an amazing day when this triangle, this foundation of acceptance is happening, right? Because you're free at that point. You're free. You're no longer holding on. You're simply the observer. Things have happened to you. You're seeing it, but you're not that, right? You are much larger. Your perception is wide open, huge. Okay, but we're not stopping there, right? Because this is still the duality plane. We're still in duality very much. So healing can happen in duality. Yeah, definitely, right? Creation can happen from duality. But we're moving into unity. So for us to move into unity, we're literally coming off this plane into a whole different point, right? Up here. So now we're not even in the same plane anymore. Duality, including acceptance, is over there, right? That's why we don't have to transcend. We're not transcending duality. We're just, our perception point has moved into unity, and now we're encompassing everything else. Now, unity is amazing because we're talking about unconditional love, right? We're talking about full understanding. Number one way to know that you're in unity is that you're able to hold a paradox. So in acceptance, we can see this perspective, and you have understanding of the different points, right? But now in unity, this is true and also this is true at the same time. We no longer have the understanding. That's why there's no conflict, there's no war in unity, because both parties are correct. It all exists, right? And now we're talking about unconditional love. And, you know, we're throwing around that word unconditional. And what I'm observing about myself, it's like, holy cow, I have discovered so much about what unconditional means and how difficult unconditional means. So if I was talking about how difficult this line was and how much effort it took to navigate that space, right? In unity, what I'm finding is that the responsibility level, which requires for us to show up with impeccability, with a level of clarity. Because here's the thing: just because we operate within unity, and maybe it's not even all the time, but we have access to that, we're having to dance within duality, right? But it's and this is not a judgment, but if you're in high school, let's say, whatever, you're a senior, and you look at somebody in fourth grade, you have no judgment that this kid is in fourth grade. You're just in high school and they're in fourth grade. That's all to it. That's kind of how it is now. You see where people are in their awareness with their consciousness and where they're operating from. But if you're in unity and you see, right, you're in high school and you're trying to explain this concept to them, or you're trying to move through a conflict, or you're trying to build something, and you're working with a fourth grader, you don't have judgment about that, but you can see the difference. So now the responsibility is on you. How do you navigate with respect, with impeccability, with in luxury? And more so, right? How do you move with this unconditional love? So the testing, the all of a sudden, duality means something different, right? It really just means a space, and everybody is in the space. Just because you're in high school, you're dealing with elementary kids, but you're also working with graduate students. You're also working with PhD. You're also working with professors. Everybody is in 3D anyway. So, um, and it's a lot more subtle, right? Like the ranking, somebody might be, the fourth grader that I was telling you about might actually be your boss. So, right, or might be your parents or something like that. And it's like, okay, I have to show up, because this you can't shake the responsibility. Once you're truly in unity, that responsibility turns on. That's how you know you're in unity. Like, oh my God, there's all this love, there's all this beauty, there's all this stuff, but the game moved at a different level, and that's what we're trying to figure out, right? But we're moving. So now we're moving in duality, and we're using this space as this creative manifestation, right? So we have the masculine, we have the feminine, and these two need to combine through us to influence, to create. And the responsibility is not just to people, the responsibility is to the environment, the planet. We are so interconnected, right? And so, and of course, I don't know what I was thinking, right? To me, I'm like, oh my God, unity, blah, blah, blah. And yes, there is an ease, but the game is getting more complex and, just more complex, I guess. It's easier in certain regards, and it is more difficult in other regards, right? But and the healing, just because you are in unity doesn't mean that you have completed all the things in duality and there's no more karma. No, you have mastered enough for your consciousness to have traveled, and your point of view, right? You're operating from a much higher perspective. You're holding all these dimensions, all these understandings within you, but you're still operating, right? So your body still has lags, and still has and not just the physical, we're talking the emotional, the mental. And maybe I'll make another video that which is part 2. I'm getting downloads about that, right? Because now we're moving from spirit, from 5D, 60, 70, who knows how many Ds, right? We're still moving through all the dimensions below. Nobody gets a break. The body doesn't get a break. And what we're feeling is more complex, right? So just because we're more neutral, and that's why we're more sensitive, right? Because we're feeling way more the more we become detached. So we're becoming detached from the 3D, from duality. We're becoming very neutral. Things are just happening many times. It's like, wow, look at this. This show up, and I have to respond. But it's truly this observer. You understand what they're thinking, and you understand how they're feeling. You understand so much more of the situation with all your senses, not just the 5. I don't know, all whatever is online now, right? And now it's about applying, right? If you're in high school or whatever, maybe you graduated high school, or and you actually have skills, you can apply and you can work, and you can truly become useful, and you can create manifestations with that responsibility to the environment, to everybody, animals, right? Plants, not just immediate family. And so now The game is about creation, and how do we create within the pendulums? How do we create within the bodies? How is the energy moving from spirit through the mental? And then the mental, you have your mental, but then there's all these pendulums and everybody else, and you're connected to so many, whatever bandwidth you're operating in and consciousness level, you're connected to that bandwidth of people, right? So you're not ever quite under zero influences. You're just aware, hopefully, most times, of how those influences affect you, right? Then you're moving into the emotional body. And same thing, the emotional is very connected to the collective and the planet, and then finally the body. So moving the energy from the spiritual and from the cosmos through all these bodies, and creating something with purpose, that is the unfolding. And that's the next level navigation through the 3D, because we're done. The first level navigation is to survive and beat the game, free yourself of the influences completely, right? So, but it's like, it's a constant freeing yourself, because at every level there's like other things that influence. Now we can talk about these things, because many of us are, at this level, or we're in unity, even if we haven't grounded 100% that. Duality is becoming easier, right? That detachment is becoming easier. That's why, going back to the beginning of the video, I can just share information, and that person can take that information and integrate it and apply it immediately, because they're already here, or they're already in this plane. They just needed a piece of information. If they were on this line, information would have not been enough, okay? Because information is always there, but it's applicable. It's embodied information that you can then use and apply it and make it, applicable in your life, right? And these are concepts. They're not just information. They're like tools. They're perceptions, and they provide solutions in understanding and clarity, right? So the information is just kind of like for the brain to go, okay, now I can relate the frequency that's already within me. I've already reached it somehow, and I can connect that frequency in my body to an analytical idea, or an analytical information. And now I can pair that, and now I can apply it readily, because it was easy to connect that. And to me, that is amazing. And it also, that's why I also say we are so interconnected, because many times, a collective does the work. And if you're part of that collective, magically, you have that frequency within you, right? And then when that information comes, it's like, wow, I have no idea how I healed, or wow, I have no idea. It was just like this spontaneous thing, right? I just received this information and boom, I shifted. Great, right? But we're, especially from unity, once we're off this line, we are operating like a beehive in this collective bandwidth, so much more. So that's why I feel like this, if I can help you, I know I can help myself, right? Like it's, I don't need anything else in return. Just do the work, right? Or shift. If you do that, then we all grow together. So it's amazing like that. So anyway, I hope that there was something in here for you. I wish you an amazing application of this. Let me know how this landed, and I'll see you in the next one. We'll see what comes through if I get to download more on manifestation through the 3D. That mechanism, I feel like it's being revealed, right? Like how that translation happens through the bodies. So I wish you all the best, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.